us an email so we can get you added to the invite list, guys. Behind the scenes, revealing foundational communication principles to help you get better results with your AI. So today's agenda, right? We're going to talk about some things you need to know on the front end, right? We're going to do some basics of prompt engineering discussions so you can learn technology and terminology along the way. We'll do a breakout session where you're actually going to take what we learned on the first half of this and collaborate to do something. And then we're going to come back and really go into some details. There's some definitions, there's some terms there, shotting, roll, tone, right? Which really allows us to help add those details to get better results out of it. We'll do one more breakout session at the end of the day that's really going to give us a product that we can hopefully have some fun with. Come back in, wrap it up, answer any other questions, and hopefully move on to have a great rest of our Tuesday. Any questions on what we want to do? Good deal. So let's talk, what do we need to do? What do we need to know on the front end, right? Well, first of all, I think we all need to understand that we need to approach working with any kind of AI or chat GPT or large language model, right? We need to literally approach this like we are teaching a baby, right? How many of you guys have raised kids? Okay, several of us, right? You need to understand that everything that you tell it, everything that you do in front of it, it is going to learn, right? And it's going to remember it. And it's going to reproduce it in all of the future works that you continue to do, right? These are learning models. And so if you're telling it to do something obscure like 2 + 2 is 6, right? You're going to have to, at some point, teach it that 2 + 2 is really 2, or 2 + 2 is really 4, right? Because if you don't, it's going to continue to reproduce the results that you try and teach it. Okay, now it doesn't just take what you've taught it, it also has this big encyclopedia of the world that is out there, right? It can go grab resources and information from just about any place that's out there and put that to use to helping to produce the results that you're asking it to produce. So beyond that understanding of I've got to be careful about what I say, right? We have to understand that we also need a clear vision of the end result. So a couple weeks ago, guys, Ray had spoke to us about the 7-11-4 marketing rule, right? And at the end, he started talking a little bit about client avatars and kind of how he's taken some of the programming that he's utilizing to help narrow down who his target market is and target people are to reach out to, right? And so he couldn't do that using things like chat GPT and things like that without having a clear vision of what he was wanting to get out of that, right? And so you also have to have a clear vision of the end result. And so I would encourage you, because of the first rule that we talked about, it will learn, right? Before you get too far into playing with any Copilot or Poe or any of these other ones that are out there, right? Hopefully you've got a clear understanding of what you're wanting to do. Otherwise, you're going to be teaching it things that may not be useful to you, or you're going to have to unteach it at some point in the future. Does that make sense? Right? So the next thing is security considerations, right? I think this is the scariest thing for all of us, right? I remember jumping into this and just playing around with it. And all of a sudden I said, hey, create me a 2-minute introduction for a networking event. And I was logged in on my Google account or on my Microsoft account, because that's where Copilot comes from. And Copilot comes up with this paragraph of retired nuclear engineer, financial advisor. I'm like, where did it get that from? Right? Where did it get all of that? I didn't feed it that information. I literally asked it, create me a 2-minute introduction for a networking group. But it has the ability to go, oh, this is Rodney Chronister logged into Microsoft.com. He falls under rodneychronister at yahoo.com. And then that system can go back through and search the entire world for wherever Rodney Chronister at yahoo.com exists, which happens to be my LinkedIn account as well, right? And came up with this 2-minute introduction, right? And so I think our biggest security considerations are that our stuff can be out there, right? Well, if you're using things like LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that, well, your information's already out there, right? Now, I don't do that. I don't say that to scare you, but I do want to let you know that there are platforms, right? There are different platforms that you can have that are going to be open AI learning models that are going to access pretty much the world. And there are other platforms that you can utilize and download and sign into, right? That will only be proprietary to whatever you're trying to teach it, right? So if you have huge concerns that at some point Greg could put something into his AI and it's going to pull something in there that you taught it, then I would tell you to use one of the privatized platforms, right? But if you're not worried about that, meaning that you're careful and considerate about what you're feeding it, right? Then I wouldn't worry about it too much, right? I mean, if you wouldn't say it in an open forum platform like Coffee Connect or Cleveland Area Networking or at the HR Roundtable, right? Then I would tell you, and don't put that into AI. You're probably okay with using something that's going to be out there for others to use as well. Everybody follow me? So let's stop the share here, at least that share. I'm going to go back to sharing an actual platform. Man, I'm glad you said that. Thank you so much, Bob, for starting that AI companion, because I forgot all about it. And then I would have tried to summarize this earlier or later and been at a loss. All right, so of those of you that raised your hands earlier, what platforms are you guys using? Anybody yell it out?
ChatGPT.
The one you showed me.
I got ChatGPT.
Tim's went to Copilot.
GPT 3.5.
GPT 2.5.
4 and 3.5.
Okay. 4 and 3.5. And so
yeah, I've got 4 running locally and 3.5 is running in the cloud.
Perfect. So when I learned about this a few weeks back, right, through these classes that I'm taking, right, and the guy was very adamant about, hey, in the world of AI, as fast as things are coming at us, right, you've really got 3 components. You've got speed of the feedback, right? Meaning you can put something in and it might take you 5 minutes to get something back, or it might take 5 seconds to get something back, the speed of it. The second thing might be the accuracy of the information, right? I remember when we first started playing with this, I shared it with Tim. I thought it was awesome. And then we realized all of the tech, like if you put a photo that had a banner across the building or something, it would be in God only knows what language, right? And not necessarily in the English language or whatever, right? And so accuracy was a big thing. And then the third thing was always, was what he said was cost, right? I mean, if you want something that is free, you've got to choose one of the other 2 things that you're going to get out of it, whether it's going to be accurate or whether it's going to be fast for you, right? Typically, you are not going to get all 3 components into the programming that is out there or platforms that are out there. If you know of ones that offer all 3, great, let's share those today and we'll figure that out. But I don't know if there is one, if you're just looking for a free platform to use that you can get all. So I'll bring your attention to the fact that we can use Copilot. Copilot's nice. I mean, it's usually right into your Microsoft programming. You can pull it up. Mine comes up off to the right. It stays down in the right. I can also enlarge it to a whole screen where it goes into more of Microsoft Edge platform. But you can basically talk here, right? And create simple things like, we're going to tell it to be happy. And in doing so, it's going to give us a response, right? And this response didn't really give us any information because we really didn't give it enough context, right, to come back and tell us, oh, this is how the things that you can do to help yourself be more happy or whatever else, right? And so it's going to give you a response. It's just a matter of how much context did you give it to actually respond to. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to pull up another one. I'm going to go to Poe. How many of you guys have used Poe? Poe is part of Google. So if you got a Google account, you should be able to sign in or download Poe as an extension to Google, right? Or as part of Google. The cool thing about Poe, so if I go to the opening page of Poe, it's got access to a ton of different platforms, right? Jeff's shaking his head like, oh my gosh, right? Listen, it's got all kinds of things. So I could put something into ChatGPT and I could put that exact same thing into Claude 3 Opus, right? And I'm going to get two different responses because it's pulling information from different areas of the world, right? Or the information system. It's also got different accuracy levels, right? Based on the fact that they're both free subscriptions. Okay. And so you have to kind of choose what might be the best platform for you. There are other things I'll bring into account here. Hugging Face, right? Hugging Face is like this library of AI. Okay, I don't know how else to say it or how better to say it. It's literally a library of AI and different platforms that can be utilized. So if I go to the models standpoint, guys, these are all different large language models that we can use to do a variety of different things. And now I want to focus on the stuff that's on the left-hand side over here. Because so often we're like, well, just tell me the program. Right? Well, I think first of all, I said you got to have a clear vision of what you're wanting to do. And so there are programs designed to do text to text. Copilot is a text to text type of environment, guys. If you're looking to create an image, right, from your mind or whatever you put in, then that would be a text to image program. There are image to image, meaning you can upload an image or put an image in there and it will tell you what it sees as the image, right? And so there's a variety of different platforms that can function in different manners. And I would think that the first thing you want to do once you have a clear vision of what you're trying to do is to figure out what platform is going to fit into that model and probably give me the best results to do what I want to do. Okay. So on that note, let's kind of go back to, I'm going to go back to Poe just because we're going to stay with Poe. We're going to stay with what I feel most people are probably using today, which is ChatGPT. Just like anything else, like Microsoft 10 versus Microsoft 11, right? Or Windows 10 versus Windows 11, right? It's newer features, newer functions, newer whatever, right? So ChatGPT 2.5 in comparison to 3.5, in comparison to 4, right? They're all going to have different levels of functionality, speed, or cost to them. So in this essence, I think Poe, if I remember right, uses ChatGPT 3.0 or 3.5. Is it 3.5, Jeff? Perfect. So it's 3.5. If you want 4.0, you're probably going to pay for it at some point, right? But as a sheer free function, we're just going to use ChatGPT 4 or ChatGPT 3.5, right? And so we're going to put in here the same function: be happy. Okay. Thank you for your kind words. Happiness is a wonderful state of being, and I'm here to help in any way. Well, I mean, this is a little bit different than what Copilot had responded to us, right? It gives us a little bit more context of how we can better communicate with ChatGPT to hopefully create a better function for ourselves, right? And so we can continue to go into this model and give it specific context. So when I put in there, be happy, This is nothing more than a term that we refer to as tokenization, or a token, right? And you guys are like, what are we talking about? A token. Be happy are two words. AI doesn't speak in the English language or in words, right? Or in paragraphs. They speak in what we call tokenization and chain of thought. Okay. Tokenization is just either a word or a series of words or a series of letters that makes sense to the language model that we're speaking to. So, for instance, if I put in there, Mary had a little, what would we suspect AI to come back as? Lamb, right? So it is taking all of the information that it knows that's already been out there in the world, right? And they're like, oh, this must be what Rodney was wanting to achieve, right? He wanted to know what Mary had a little of, right? So you need to understand how tokenization works and how that communication can be received when we're putting it into Poe or ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever it is that you're using. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so the more specific we can get, right, the better things can be. Priming, so tokenization is a word or a series of words, right? Priming is nothing more than a series of tokenizations that can help clarify the idea of what we're trying to get. Okay, so if I wrote down, and I'm not sharing, let me go back to sharing, because I like looking at you guys too. I get tough sometimes. So, except I'm sharing the wrong screen. Maybe I can do both of these at the same time. There we go. So I put down be happy, and it gave us this whamadine response of stuff, right? And so now we're going to clarify. We're going to say, hey, I am a 52-year-old male. Here's the best thing I learned, right? And Jeff's going to be like, you guys are silly, right? If I hit enter right now, it's going to basically enter that response, and it's going to be like, who cares, right? You're a 52-year-old male, want to be happy. Gotcha. But we want to keep the ideas together as much as possible. So if I hit shift enter, did you guys know that? If I hit shift enter, it'll start the next line for me. Right? How many times you put a response in LinkedIn or Facebook or something, you hit enter, and you're like, shoot, I didn't mean to post that yet, right? And then you got to go back in. If you hit shift enter, it'll actually just start the next line for me. So I'm trying to keep my ideas as clear and concise as possible and as minimal, because if you just share a whole book, they're gonna be like, what did I just learn, right? What did I just gather? I'm a 52-year-old male, desiring to write a small letter to friends speaking on the intent and reasoning on being happy. Sign my letter with love. I don't know. I give it a little bit more context as to what I'm wanting it to do. And all of a sudden, I've got this letter, right? Dear Joe, I hope this letter finds you well. It's been a while since we've last connected, and I wanted to take this opportunity to share some thoughts with you about happiness.
Rodney.
Yes, sir.
Ask it to do it in the style of Shakespeare now.
Oh, I haven't. I'm getting there. I'm getting there, right?
I saw a presentation one time where Dave Hatter said, write a love poem in the style of Edgar Allan Poe.
So we're gonna come back in and we're gonna talk about tonality and stuff like that, right? But you can literally put this in any form that you want, right? I could ask for Shakespeare, or I could ask for, hey, write the letter, because I know most of my friends are not smarter than a fifth grader. Write the letter in the tone of a fifth grader.
I have my settings in ChatGPT set to answer all of my questions as if they were explaining technical items to a high school student.
And so I think this is what's important, right? Because, and we can go in and we can put that context in there, guys, and we're going to explore in the second half of today, right? How we can actually feed it some of the things that maybe we've already written, things that we've created, right? Documents that we've produced. And it can analyze you as what is your style of writing, what is your tonality, what is your vocabulary that you like to speak in, what level is that, and then it can transcribe anything that you're asking it to do into that kind of context, so that when I read something, I don't feel like I'm reading something that was generated by a robot, but I genuinely feel like I'm reading something that was generated by Bob Petty or Pam Farwick or whoever sent it to me. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there for a second because we're getting way ahead, and I want to go to a breakout room. And guys, we're going to go to a breakout room, and we're just going to take a few minutes. What are you guys seeing? Are you seeing AI still, or are you seeing?
I'm seeing
AI.
AI.
Mm.
Come on.
Now I'm seeing breakout rooms.
Here we
Good
go.
deal. So somebody screenshot this, or everybody screenshot this, so that you have it when you go into the breakout room. Our job is going to be to, one, introduce ourselves. Two, I want you to define an organization. It could be your group, it could be Coffee Connect, it could be your business. I don't care. Define somebody's organization, define the goals of the organization, define the intent of an email, very similar to what we just talked about. And beyond the basics, I would like everyone in the group to at least create one prompt that helps to specify the mood, the tone, the action to take, or something that might deem pertinent to the conversation. Does everybody understand what I'm asking you to do in the breakout room?
So you're
All right.
giving us 2 hours, right?
You're literally going to take about 10 minutes.
Right.
I'm not asking you to write the email. I'm asking you to define the prompts.
Plug in.
Oh boy.
I was plugged in. I am
But
plugged in.
Amar, you
Okay,
can't do this in 10 minutes.
Okay.
That's the point. AI will let you do this in 10 minutes and get started.
Yes. So
Okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing. All right. So as we're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna take us forever to do that. How many of you guys actually got an email generated?
Probably good, yeah.
Jeff did.
It's not that tough, guys, right? I mean, we got an email generated. We actually refined it because it looked like it was about 6 pages long, a little bit, right? And we're able to take it down. And one of the questions that came out, right, when we were in the room was, well, can you just copy that and put it back into the chat and say, hey, summarize this? Or I said, you don't even have to do that, right? You can just go on to the next prompt to say, hey, I want to shorten this down. Right? I want to shorten it down.
We are calling to let you know that according.
I don't know what she's doing, but you can shorten it down, right? Just by adding another prompt in there. At some point, I will tell you that if you can continue down the chains of thought, and it feels like you started a project way over here and now you're way over here, it will tell you probably need to start a new chat. It'll tell you need to start a new project, right? Because this is so far off from what you were trying to accomplish in the first chat, right? So I mean, this is the simplistic version, guys. I think there's an important term to learn. It's called hallucination. And everyone's like, yeah. I mean, Sanford's like, yes, I was in the 60s. I know what hallucination is, right? No. So hallucination refers to the situation, guys, when the language model generates information that is not accurate or factual.
Do you have a screen?
What's that?
Screenshot?
I don't have a screenshot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have a screenshot. But I'm going to send all the notes out because I've got this in an outline. Didn't have time to create a PowerPoint around it. Sorry about that, Lamar. But So hallucination produces fictional details or make up information that doesn't exist, right? And so by being more precise on what we're asking it to do, we can reduce the amount of stuff, right? Because it's going to want to give you an answer, right? It's like a good dog. It wants to be kind to you and stuff like that. But if it doesn't have the real answer of what it needs to do or how it needs to behave, it'll find something to throw in there, right? Hence, when we ask it to generate a photo or an image, it just throws in language of German nature or something like that, right? Because we're not being specific enough for it. Does that make sense, everyone? So the preciseness of how we communicate is probably the thing that we all learn the most, have to learn the most. And the cool thing about this from a networking standpoint, guys, right? And Jeff does a great presentation on getting specific, right? How many times do we meet people and they just say, well, anybody you can introduce me to? Well, I can introduce you to a shit ton of people. That doesn't mean it's going to bring you any value of any sort, right? What kind of people? What backgrounds do they have, right? What businesses maybe they were involved in? Asking those questions of networkers allows us to get more specific as far as who we can provide introductions and bring value to. AI is no different, guys, right? The more specific we can get, the better prompts it's going to give us back to say, here's your answers, right? So, perfect. Any questions as of right now? So, Jeff was bringing up a good thing that he started talking about, ask it to speak in Shakespeare. You can ask this thing and narrow it down based on roles, tonality, right? You can add any of that language in there. Or if you say, I want to speak angry, it's going to create an email that's going to speak angrily, right? If you say, hey, I want the reader of this to feel the full context of my love and compassion and empathy for him, guess what it's going to do, right? It's going to put it in words that's probably going to make that person cry, right? And so it really just depends on what you're trying to do. Dave brought up a point, so I want to open the floor real quick because I would like to send us back out to another breakout room essentially and practice something else. As far as how you guys are using AI, open the floor up. What are you doing?
Well, in my case, it was very simple. For the last 2 months, I was doing applications and I was redefining my resume based on what the position I was applying for. And I was asking cover letters based on that. And also, I was addressing the cover letters based on the person who I was sending it to. If it was a recruitment manager, if it was a hiring manager, the hiring manager was a technical person compared to a operations person. And it was fantastic because it would do that in like a minute and a half. And over the course of 2 months, it had understood my resume, understood what I was looking for. So it knew me inside out. And that happened really, really quick. It happened for me in about a week that it was actually able to get me all that information. So yeah, it did help me a lot.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. I think about from an engineering standpoint, right? If I know, hey, here's the design characteristics of this turbine, and here's all the readings that I've been getting from all the records that we have to take in the Navy. We take things called logs, like every hour I got to write down temperatures, pressures, all that kind of stuff, right? If I can feed that in, how much more accurate can I get to understanding what's actually taking place on my bearings, on my oil, on all the stuff that's composed within that, right? And so it can compare two different sets of documents, as Nora was just talking about, right? I can look at job description, I can look at my resume, I can look at my predictive index, put all of that together and ask AI to go compare all of these, and how can I make it sound like I'm the best fit for that job?
Nice. Dave, I'm curious, you had mentioned that you're using it in a different way than maybe some others, something maybe a bit unique. Can you mind sharing a little bit of how you're using it?
I have this perfectionist streak, and it takes me like hours to write a blog that is 2 paragraphs long. So with March Madness, somebody challenged me to, could you do at least 3 I wanted to try to do 4 in that first week. And if you go out and you can look at my site, I just had questions like what are good features of an underdog? Where does a coach help in, and I had general ideas of where I wanted to take the article or the blog. It jumped material to me, and a lot of it was crap because I didn't focus it like Jeff did. But I could take it and edit within 10 to 15 minutes and get it out there where it would have taken me an hour or I would have given up. So if you're looking to have text written and you have this, now that word I want accept and not take in, or whatever the differences of words, and you're always wordsmithing, it's really great because it gets you over that first hurdle and then you're just fine tuning. And that's where I found I can now at least get more material out that might be useful than I ever could before.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a thing where I had shown what at that time was the latest copy of my resume to a recruiter. And not that I was looking for a job, but I was looking to show my resume to those in transition to use as an example. And they said, yeah, I would rewrite this one paragraph here if I were you. And so what I did was I went in, I said, okay, what does this title do? And, and show it to me in 200 words or less. And it spit out like 197 words. I went through and I said, okay, I did this. Okay, I'd reword this a little bit. Nope, didn't do that. And I cut and pasted that in probably about 3 minutes, where it would have taken me, like what Dave said, probably would have taken me an hour plus to write it myself and, craft it and reshape it and all that. But taking what it spit out, I was able to cut that time down, 90% or more.
I used it to modify a person's resume. I help people with their resumes somewhat. I'm not a paid coach.
Mm-hmm.
This guy had terrific accomplishments, including leading a company on an IPO. And but the resume was kind of a mess. And so I took the piece of it where he listed his accomplishments, and I said, after the 3 asterisks, take the text that follows, rewrite it into bullet point format, and start each bullet point with an action verb in the past tense. And it took about 1/4 second, and it was stunning. It was like, I was blown away.
There is all kinds of opportunities that we can use this for. And I mean, Ray has taken it to the extreme, obviously, I think, in his business and stuff, but yeah, just writing articles or, summarizing things that are taking place within Coffee Connect and stuff has saved me immense amounts of time, right? I can't even describe the time that it would take me before to do some of this stuff. That is probably down to about 25% of it, right? And let's face it, guys, time is something you're never going to get back. So you might as well make it the most efficient use of it as you can. So I'm gonna go back to Sharon so we can kind of wrap this up and we can continue the conversation. I want to, because we're not going to get to a second breakout room today, but I did want to share what I had planned because I think you guys would have enjoyed it. And so on the second breakout, my plan initially was to, am I sharing the right screen? Yeah, perfect. Was to hopefully get through some of the other detailed pieces, which we didn't, and then send you guys to a breakout room and either pick an experience in someone's life within the group and then create a short story around that narrative and allowing everyone to kind of interject points of the story, which would have been fun, I think, and would have been fun to share and read and bring back just to laugh and have a good time with. Part of it would have been factual, obviously, but part of it also would have been just made up by the other members of the group. The second thing was, and I played with this for a long time. How many of you guys have ever found that you got to find the different comparisons, right? Where there's 2 photos next to each other. They look almost identical, but there's really small things that are missing within the photos. Anybody ever play those games or see those things? Right?
Yeah, spot the differences. Yeah.
Yeah, spot the differences. Yeah. Using AI, try to create your own spot the differences. That's a rough one, right? I was trying for about 2 hours last night while I was on class, trying to take notes and listen to keep adjusting these, find the differences. It's not impossible, but you definitely have to get the right words and correct prompts in doing so. And last night, what